Well, hello, hello. Thank you for joining me. If you landed here, you've landed on Let's Talk News, and I'm your host, Leticia Remauro, on this special Friday night edition of Let's Talk News. I decided that we should talk a little bit tonight about our First Lady and the press conference that she held yesterday, um, where she lambasted the legacy news media for the lies that they're telling and the exaggerations that are going on with respect to her connection to Jeffrey Epstein. And it left a lot of people asking lots of questions about why, about the timing, especially that it was a last minute news conference and that the subject matter was not advertised ahead of time. Let's just call it that, advertised ahead of time. So it left a lot of people wondering. And at the end, even though we knew that what she said was, I'm out here talking about Epstein, and I want to clear my name. And I'm going to read her statement because it's not a long statement, but at the end of the day, legacy media, was left scratching their head as to what this was all about. And of course, here at Let's Talk News, we always know what things are about, or we have a good idea, or we have a really, really great um, educated guess. Let's put it that way. But guess what? We got some of our regulars here. Hello, Karen. Happy Friday to you. Thank you for joining me on this odd day. And Tommy McMurray, how are you? I hope you're feeling well. I hope you're recovering well. And I hope you still feel like a teenager. And hello, my dear friend Angela Ricca. Thank you all for joining me. So here's what I'm going to do. Rather than play the sound bites that everybody did, I thought that I would read the whole statement. I can't read it in the same beautiful accent as our first lady, but I can read it for you. Let's just share the screen. Oh yes, watching Artemis. I should be watching Artemis also, but filming in and let me know that everything's okay. I saw the initial entry. Okay, so good afternoon. The lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today. The individuals lying about me are devoid of ethical standards, humility, and respect. I do not object to their ignorance, but rather I reject their mean spirited attempts to defame my reputation. I have never been friends with Epstein. Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time, since overlapping in social circles is common in New York and Palm Beach. To be clear, I never had a relationship with Epstein or his accomplice, Maxwell. My email reply to Maxwell cannot be categorized as anything more than casual correspondence. My polite reply to her email doesn't amount to anything more than a trivial note. I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. I met my husband by chance at a New York City party in 1998. This initial encounter with my husband is documented in detail in my book, Melania. The first time I crossed paths with Epstein was in the year 2000 at an event Donald and I attended together. At the time, I had never met Epstein and had no knowledge of his criminal undertakings. Numerous fake images and statements about Epstein and me have been circulating on social media for years now. Be cautious about what you believe. These image these images and stories are completely false. I am not a witness or a named witness in connection with any of Epstein's crimes. My name has never appeared in court documents, depositions, victim statements, or FBI interviews surrounding the Epstein matter. I have never had any knowledge of Epstein's abuse of his victims. I was never involved in any capacity. I was not a participant, was never on Epstein's plane, and never visited his private island. I have never been legally accused or convicted of a crime in connection with Epstein's sex trafficking, abuse of minors, and other repulsive behavior. The false smears about me from mean spirited and politically motivated individuals and entities looking to cause damage to my good name to gain financially and climb politically must stop. My attorneys and I have fought these unfounded and baseless lies with success and will continue to maintain my sound reputation without hesitation. To date, several individuals and companies have been legally obligated to publicly apologize and retract their lies about me, such as the Daily Beast, James Carville, and HarperCollins UK. Now is the time for Congress to act. Epstein was not alone. Several prominent male executives resigned from their powerful positions after this matter became widely politicized. Of course, this doesn't amount to guilt, but we still must work openly and transparently to uncover the truth. I call on Congress to provide the women who have been victimized by Epstein with a public hearing specifically centered around the survivors. Give these victims their opportunity to testify under oath in front of Congress with the power of sworn testimony. Each and every woman should have her day to tell her story in public if she wishes, and then her testimony should be permanently entered into the congressional record. Then and only then will we have truth. And this comes from the White House, as you can see. That's where I'm sharing it from. What do you think about that? What do you make of it? Does anybody have an idea of why this would happen now? Because people are all asking the same question. Why now? What happened? Why today? Pam Bondi is gone. What's going on? Wow, I could tell you what's going on. Hello, Professor. How are you? Hello, Lucille. Good to have you. Thank you for joining us on a Friday. Hello, Kevin Young. Thank you for joining us on a Friday. So first off, we here have spoken often about Epstein and his girlfriend, not Maxwell, because Maxwell was not his girlfriend, but his girlfriend, the one who he left all his money to, his girlfriend and his brother. And I am still dumbfounded as to why Congress has not called her in for testimony, her, the girlfriend, or the brother, because I don't know. Isn't it an old saying, follow the money? I would certainly want to know what they knew when they knew it. And also, how did he get his money? We know that he had financial dealings with some high level people, but we also suspect that there was some blackmail going on there. And if somebody it was getting their money illegally, shouldn't that money be taken away from them? Much like drug dealers and cartel, and if you are using something to commit a crime, oh, good, splashdown, Angela says. It gets confiscated, right? It gets seized and then it's sold off. And then usually the money goes to the victims. Well, why aren't we doing that with Epstein's billions of dollars? There was a lot of money there. Was it? I'm sorry, 500 million or maybe more. Yeah. Why hasn't that happened? Why aren't we finding out whether his girlfriend and brother were acting as a shelter for him, acting as a beard for him, acting as a way for him to hide his money and protect it? Shouldn't these women be able to sue and get money, even if he's dead? Because he left the money to others, but if it's ill-gotten gains, should they be allowed to keep that money? I think that the answer is no. I'm not quite sure if we ever did anything like that before in our country, but I do think that so many things are changing and changing so rapidly that this is something that should be looked into. I don't know, hold a trial posthumously. Can that happen? I don't know. I mean, why can't the girls, the victims, sue the estate? That's happened before. So there's a lot of reason. Yeah, hold on a second. I keep forgetting her name. Hold on a second. I'm gonna look that up because I am too old to remember this shit, and I have a lot of things in my brain. I want to say Kate, but it's not. It was I think a German name. His name. Okay. Blah, blah. Now, yeah, see, that is incorrect. It's saying Ghislaine Maxwell, but that was not his girlfriend. Hold on. I'll tell you. Let me Google it in a different way. Who inherited? Okay, here it is. Karina Shuliak. Karina, Karyna. I can share this screen. Hold on a second. Karina Shuliak. And let's share the screen and we can look at it together. I don't know if you'll be able to see it because I know it comes out small, but I will read it with you. Jeffrey Epstein's fortune, initially valued at over $577 million and held in the 1953 trust, was largely directed to his girlfriend, Karyna Shuliak, and various beneficiaries rather than his brother, Mark Epstein. A significant portion has been depleted by lawsuits, taxes, and over $160 million in victim settlements, reducing the estate's value to around $120 to $150 million. Primary beneficiary, Karyna Shuliak, was named as the largest beneficiary in the 1953 trust, intended to receive over $100 million in assets, including annuities and property. Executors, beneficiaries, longtime lawyer Darren Indyke and accountant Richard Kahn were named co-executors and were slated to receive $50 million and $25 million, respectively. Victim compensation. A substantial portion of the money has gone to a victims' compensation fund, including roughly $80 million and $30 million settlement with the U.S. Virgin Islands. I think that all of it should go. Brother's role. Mark Epstein, Jeffrey's only known relative, was not named as the primary heir in 1953 trust, but was listed in the will as a beneficiary of $10 million. He acted as a potential successor if the trust was invalidated. Estate value fluctuations. The estate's value dropped significantly due to costs, but $112 million tax refund in early 2025 partially restored its value. $112 million tax refund last year. I didn't even see that. That's interesting. The trust was created just 2 days before his 2019 death and has been handled by trustees Indyke and Kahn. Okay. And I didn't remember that, or I didn't read that it was only, the trust was only created 2 days before. That's interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. So, okay, so now the depletion of the funds because of the victims' funds and all that stuff. The victims can still sue and can still get more money. So, I think that the First Lady saying that the victims should come forward and tell their stories is very important, because they have to tell them under oath. Because right now there are, and there were too in the past, women going around pointing fingers and actually like using their stories as leverage to get money out of people, even though they weren't, may or may not have been an Epstein victim. And all these people named in these files, I think we all agree that just because you're named doesn't mean that you took part in anything illegal, but that doesn't mean that you're not defamed, because look at Melania and look at Trump. We know Trump had him arrested, but yet they're tagging the president with all kinds of horrible names. Whoopi Goldberg stood up there and cleared her name and said, "Oh, yes, I was there, but I wasn't. I was a fundraiser, and that's the only reason they were talking to me." And yada yada yada. So having the women speak on the record or giving testimony that is a sworn testimony is a way to separate the wheat from the chaff, if you will. So I think that that's necessary because we know that very few people will go before Congress and lie, because they know damn well that the punishment for that is very bad. But the women who do speak and speak frankly and honestly could shed a lot of light on what happened there. More than Hillary and Bill Clinton can, more than anybody in the files can. But more than anybody in the files who can shed light on things is Karina Sheliak. She has been his girlfriend forever. Ghislaine Maxwell was not his girlfriend. She was his accomplice. He sought her out because of her father, Robert. Okay, so I spent half the show talking about what the First Lady said, why what she said makes sense. Because she knows that her name will be cleared, because there's nobody that will be able to swear to that she or the president had any nefarious dealings with Jeffrey Epstein. In fact, Virginia Giuffre, who was the woman who accused and won the case against Prince Andrew, who used to work at Mar-a-Lago, was one of those who said that Donald Trump was nothing but kind and never did anything untoward. So why now? Why now? Of all reasons, why now? Let's see. Do you think Melania had pressure from Barron to do what she did? Because I'm not sure if Trump would have encouraged her to do it. No. She did what she did when she did it because people are claiming that this conflict with Iran was to cover up and stall the Epstein files. Right? They're saying that this was a tail that wagged the dog situation. So that's what a lot of news media is saying, that this was all just to cover up Epstein. Now, if you're the president and you know what you're doing, and we all know what he's doing because we showed it yesterday, right? With Iran and China and Russia in South America, threatening us in our backyard and in our homeland. So if the news media wants to put this false narrative out there that this is a war to take the Epstein files off the front pages, what better way to prove them wrong than putting the Epstein files back on the front pages? Now, Donald Trump can't come out as commander-in-chief in the middle of a war and start talking about the Epstein files. That wouldn't make any sense. But the First Lady coming out and talking about it and asking Congress to do something about it the day after somebody was convicted on the Take It Down Act that she put in front of Congress and that the president signed into law, which is when you post false images or AI, anything generated on social media or in the press, and you disparage somebody, then you could be convicted under the Take It Down Act. So to some extent, these false images that they have running around of Melania and Epstein and Trump and Epstein and Trump and young women. And um, this is that falls under the Take It Down Act. Absolutely. But Trump's the president. And because you're the president, you're limited in the ability to sue for libel. But let me not lose the point here. They put Epstein back in the news. And that's a big to all those news agencies that want to accuse Trump of invading Iran or having this Iran conflict just to distract us from Epstein. I think it's fucking brilliant because he knows he has nothing to worry about. She knows they have nothing to worry about. And he put it there. He put it back in the presses. So it was funny because, hi, Gloria. When the press asked him if he knew what she was going to speak about, he says, "Oh, no, I have no idea." Oh, come on. Maybe he didn't know exactly what she was going to say, but it does not work that way, where, especially in that marriage to that man, because that man, our president, respects strong women. He is like any other real red-blooded American husband and father. He knows who controls certain things in the house and he cedes that power. And he brings home the bacon and she handles everything else. And I think Melania, the movie, if anybody did see it, you could see that dynamic between them, the husband-wife dynamic. And she worries about the things all women worry about: his safety, her safety, the safety of their kid and the extended children and grandchildren. She worried about how things look in the public. She worried about the children. She worried about the people who were maybe weaker than other people. In the movie you saw that. And she did it again here. She came out and said, "Congress, let the women speak. And let's put all this nonsense to the side. Let's the people who have real testimony give it. And if you come with false testimony, you will be prosecuted. Let them have a day in court." She was absolutely right to do that because somebody needs to speak for the victims. Trump can't. He has already. He did in the past. But with the left TDS, he can't anymore. So now she's going to do it. That's a team, and that's the way things go. And that's why yesterday happened. And to me, that was a stroke of brilliance, an absolute stroke of brilliance. I mean, what do you think? Could I be wrong? Of course, it happens once in a great while, but I'm not. I'm absolutely not wrong. There would be no other reason to put Epstein back in the papers again. None. Except to prove the point that they have nothing to hide and they have nothing to run for, and that they would never create a war so they didn't have to talk about this. And it takes the Democrats' talking point away from them. And that's important because we need to talk about stuff. We need to talk about Artemis. We need to talk about NASA. We need to talk about Space Force. We need to talk about this war. We need to talk about, the price of gas, which, oh, by the way, came down 40 cents by me. I don't know about you guys. That's what we need to talk about. And now, what's fake news media going to do? What did they even say about it? Except for scratching their heads because they couldn't figure it out. They're very smart. She's very smart. They both are. They're a smart couple. But she's very smart, and people don't give her credit for being as intelligent as she is. She's probably one of the most intelligent first ladies we've ever had. And she is a businesswoman, and she was a businesswoman before marrying Donald Trump and even dating Donald Trump, because she was a model. And when you're a model, you work for yourself. Um, she has she has business prowess like few others. She's got a kind heart, but she's tough as nails. I mean, she's deadly, that woman. I have to tell you. Um, Something about immigrants to this country. There's a different world, especially in Eastern European nations. It's a different way of looking at the world. And especially when there's so much struggle, you don't know, if your next meal is your last or not. And I don't think you ever get rid of that. I know that my grandparents, I spent a lot of time with them as a child. And my grandparents, my grandmother especially, she was with my uncle and my father as toddlers in Italy while it was occupied. Um, During World War II. And she had her sisters and her two younger brothers. No adult in the house other than, her. She was the only one married in the house. And he was gone, my grandfather. He was a merchant seaman, and he was in America, and they couldn't come back. So he wound up jumping ship, and yes, I come from illegal migrants. He became legal because he went to fight in the war, and they made him a citizen. But my beginnings were he jumped ship. Um, but my grandparents, because they had no food, they had to stretch everything. They taught me to be very conservative and to be suspicious of people, and they had a mindset that never left them, and they passed it on to me, their grandchild. So for Melania, coming from a similar background, same kind of thing, but even worse because she experienced it firsthand. Um, so she's a trust but verify kind of woman. And that outfit that she wore for the inauguration, that outfit sends a statement. Um, that she wasn't going to be fucked with this time around. And she isn't being fucked with this time around. But I do think that they are a super duper power couple, and they share power. Not in that she directs the presidency, but I do think, obviously, what do they say about the husband and the wife? The wife is the neck, which turns the head. You know, he respects her a lot, as he should. And they work together. And I think that yesterday was good proof of that. The most important thing to both of them is to not have endless wars. And I'm sure it's killing her and him, what is going on right now in Iran. Because if you ever look back at his statements for any of the wars that we were in, he always said it was a useless, a senseless loss of lives. And their negotiation is key. We could always negotiate. I guess he's learning, right, that you can't always negotiate with terrorists. But he knows what he has to do, and he knows that this won't be an endless war. But it certainly wasn't used to cover up Epstein anything. And if you don't read that anywhere in the next couple of days, or if you don't see, put it this way, watch what happens over the next couple of days. We're going to hear less about Epstein. We're going to hear much less about Epstein and this being a war to cover up Epstein. Now, whether or not they're going to really delve into what we're diving into today, I doubt it, because I don't know that they're smart enough to realize that. They would have to admit that they were assholes, right? Legacy media. But we know the truth. So, at any rate, I wanted to come on here and talk about that. And look out for the stories. Look out for how it was covered. Look out for if you hear any more that this war was a cover up for Epstein. I don't think you're going to see that. All right, everybody. Even by myself with no clips, I went over. I love you all. I'm going to be back on Sunday. So thanks for joining me on this Friday edition and allowing me to talk your ear off. And I will see you on Sunday, 8 o'clock.